Surf's up, everyone. I want to welcome you to the first episode of the Mauisnake Show. This is a podcast with a video component. If you're listening to this on a podcast platform of your choosing, don't worry. There's nothing in the videos that you need to see in order to enjoy the show. But anybody that wants to see reactions of myself and my possible guests, then yeah, watch the YouTube video. This podcast will not only cover the CSGO landscape, but it'll actually additionally contain interviews with people from other esports, even people from other industries. The inaugural guests for the show are Paula and Launders. You'll know Paula from his huge YouTube channel, peaked at over 400,000 subscribers, but he's now most known for his hosting and interviewing work on the CSGO circuit. The first guest will be Launders, and I'm sure if you follow me from CSGO, this guy needs no introduction. We cover the G2 win in Abu Dhabi for the Blast World Finals, but we also go over our top 5 work travel destinations of the year, and we have a lengthy discussion about what made all of those places special to us. Enjoy. All right, we're here with Launders, the first official guest of the Mauisnake Show. Welcome, Launders. I know you just got back from Abu Dhabi, but hope you're having a good day. How's it going?
Yeah, you like my tan? I was out there in the desert.
Yeah, I couldn't tell.
You're looking tanned yourself, of course. Been living in Hawaii for the last couple of months, but Abu Dhabi was really cool. I didn't expect it to be that cool. It was awesome.
Yeah, I know you described it as Arrakis. Is that actually how you see it?
Yeah, I mean, in a sense, I mean, there's maybe a couple more parallels there that I don't know if it's worth getting into, but with Arrakis, I think just seeing the sand dunes, being out there, and just going on for infinity. I think that was the cool part about being in the desert. I have lived in California, I've lived in the desert, but I've never actually been to a real desert like that. I've never been to Joshua Tree. I've never been to like Arizona or anything. So that was a really cool experience to be out in the dunes.
Yeah, just the legitimate sand dunes. I know that Frank Herbert was a bit of like an Islamophile. A lot of his imagery comes from that kind of stuff, but yeah, we can talk about that another time. All right, so obviously you were there to work on the Blast World Finals where G2 were able to take their trophy. I think this is a pretty big occasion for them. I mean, this is a pretty huge victory because a lot of people were drawing a lot of questions about Hooksy, his ability, whether there was a good fit for this team. I think the haters also were trying to come for JKS a bit, given that he was supposed to be an upgrade over Jax, and I would say his results or his individual performances were kind of meddling. They weren't always consistent. But what did you get from G2 at this? I'll focus it like this first. Do you think Hooksy was a reason that they were able to capture this trophy?
Yeah, I think the team was clearly playing well around his calls, and I think that was the biggest thing. I think also his individual level is high enough that it never seemed to be a problem. Actually, I think it won them a couple of maps with just a couple of entries that he got, even a like literal spray transfer, which is like the peak of individual skill. That he had a couple of great moments as an individual, and then a lot of great moments as an IGL. And I think that the team definitely played great. And I don't want to draw on all these other factors around what happened before the event. And there's some weird things, like for example, the M4A4 change. I thought that was kind of going to be just like a running joke that every time JKS gets a 2K with the A4, that wow, this change really buffed him and nerfed everyone else. But by the end of the event, it just kept happening, where it felt like he wouldn't have been able to do this with an A1S, and I wondered how much that actually mattered.
Yeah, we could go a couple different directions with that, but I do want to actually talk about the Hooksy angle a little bit more, because I would say that when they didn't make it to the major, but like you look at that one loss, do you consider the lack of a major appearance from G2, does that make the rest of the season a failure? Because I think most people would say that that's one of the most important things in the calendar.
It was funny because at the Blast World Final, there's an interview with Nico, and I think he was asked, how would you feel if you were Jame right now and you got eliminated from the World Final and come in last place after winning the major? And Nico says, I wouldn't care because, he's the one who won the major, and that's like Nico's dream. Like that's the only thing left for him really to win, sort of like simple before Stockholm. So I think that it's an abject failure. It's something that you can't really replace with another trophy. I think it's still quite nice to get any trophy. I think G2's first trophy since 2017, Nico's first trophy since 2019, Hunter's first trophy on HLTV, besides some like random 200K events or something. Monacy's first Hooksy's. I mean, it's just like really great. Nothing replaces the major, however.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. I want to take the side of, well, basically on another show I was doing, I think Kassad was kind of calling into question how big the win was here for G2 and how much it matters. But I think that Blast has firmly inserted themselves so much so in the circuit that, and looking at the competition that was at this event too, it really legitimizes the ability and level that a few of the teams that were playing at. For example, Heroic at the fall finals, showing that the major run wasn't a fluke for them when they're playing with their 5-man lineup. And then also G2 showing that they just had more to offer.
The only thing about it is that a lot of that story about whether the major mattered and the world final didn't or did has to do with Miko specifically. I think everybody else that kind of probably felt like what it would feel like to win a major for most players. And like you were saying, because of the 8 teams there, one or two teams were not up to snuff. Even though Outsiders won the major, they came in last place. They lost to
Liquid
and they
and
lost
G2.
to and G2.
Yeah.
So it's not like they had the absolute hardest teams even at the world final and still had a really subpar result. So but the amount of teams there, I mean, the 8 teams that were there better than most teams on average than teams that that run at a very deep event. I mean, even if we look at Outsiders run at the major, the hardest team they played was Heroic, legitimized by them winning the fall final. But outside of that, they were beating teams ranked like 7th to 13th or something, like, you know what I mean? It wasn't
Yes.
the hardest run possible. So
I don't know how much the CS community needs in order to always just say that this is a legitimate tournament win, because I actually think that's kind of a toxic mindset that the community has developed over time because of, I would say actually it's mostly due to HLTV
Boston.
World Rankings. I mean, yeah, okay, that's partially that's probably the remnants of it or like a symptom of it, but the idea that you have to beat top 5, 4, 3, 2 team to secure your position as a number 1 team. Like, you look at really any sport for that matter, and there's always going to be upsets leading up to wherever the next team you have to play is. And so people will like try to discredit that, but I also think that making it deep into tournament runs does involve a certain level of form that some teams, like, people almost take for granted. Like the level I would say like Liquid has been playing at to reach it to the grand finals of 2 events in the second half of the season, or the second half of the year, that is quite impressive on their own. I think that secures them an elite status. Like, if you can consistently make grand finals, then you really shouldn't be drawn into question as much as a team like Liquid is. But people always want to go a little bit further, and they want to say, does this team actually have a championship contender sort of aspirations, or are they actually a team that people are counting on to potentially win a trophy? But, and I want to just like shift this to G2. From this World Finals, do you think G2 is going to be a team that continues this sort of form? Do you think they're going to be a championship contender, or do you think some of the other teams are going to rise?
I think it's perception is a big thing here, like you're talking about. I think it opens the door in my mind to believing that G2 can close tournaments from now on. Like, when I look at Liquid and they make to the grand finals, I think those are 2 really great results. And I think that, yeah, clearly Liquid have the tools to beat a team in the grand finals and maybe win an event in 2023. And that's for like the people who are watching everything and understand that their T sides have gotten better. You can't just improve the team. All that stuff actually matters. But there is some psychological barrier that we don't know if they can cross, that they can only prove simply by winning a tournament, and then we can go from there. And I think that's what G2 did. They kind of had the same tools as Liquid, even without, like, before missing the major by failing at the RMR, they still showed such great things at Pro League. They showed they could beat a lot of the top teams. So they were in a similar place to Liquid, except now they closed out an event. So now there's probably a renewed faith or more confidence that they could win events in the future. I think it's like, we had so many different winners for tournaments in 2022, and that doesn't speak to how much parity there is at the top. It speaks to how many new teams are challengers at big events in the top 20. And I think that I don't think FaZe really have dropped off that much. I think everybody else has kind of caught up, and that means that in 2023 you could believe in G2 that they can win tournaments. I don't think you could believe they're going to win 2 or 3 tournaments, and I think that would still be a healthy and reasonable expectation to have for the team. That would show that they are successful. But I think if you want to say, oh, G2 are going to have an era next year, no, they're not.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assumption. Does it feel like any team is on the cusp of achieving era status? I would say no. I don't think there's really anybody out there that has all the pieces or has it in them. I guess I would want to say the teams that I think have the most potential to do it would probably be Heroic and G2, or FaZe could try to get it back, but in some ways, after Cologne this year, I felt like FaZe just lost a huge step.
I kind of wonder what you mean by what they have to put together an era, like because FaZe were so close and didn't make it, it's unlikely they'll do it again. Is that kind of where you're coming from?
Yes.
Yeah, and that's fair. Like they used all their juice. I guess that's a good way to look at it.
Yeah.
Whereas Heroic are trending up like really hard, and they've incorporated Gabby to a perfect spot where he's young and he's clearly insane in finals too. He's last fall finals, so lots of time for him. Cadian's probably the most motivated he's ever been. So yeah, that makes sense. And I think that's true for G2 as well. It's kind of like also Liquid are playing like the best CS they have since 2019. So there's something there, but they haven't. There's separate problems here. Like I keep bringing up this point that OC is like the 4th best player on Liquid, and that's a huge issue.
Yeah,
using the most expensive gun on the team, but for some reason not being utilized as a player better. So okay, I would say, I think when you first asked that question, I still thought FaZe should be. I still believe in Kerrigan to be able to carry across events and perform well individually across events more than I do even Cadian, definitely more than I do in Hooksy. Like Hooksy's not someone who I do see just having 3 or 4 good tournaments in a row individually, which again, I don't have a problem with Hooksy's calling. I don't think that has been an issue since he's joined the team. Actually, I think the team is visibly improved, but I don't think that his individual level is going to keep up.
Yeah, it's tough to imagine that Hooksy's going to go from being, a 0.8 career player to somebody that can contribute at any serviceable level against tier 1 opposition regularly. I think that when you look at the teams that are in the mix right now to potentially achieve it, I think the point about Cadian being motivated is probably the biggest selling factor for me. For Heroic, the fact that he knows he hasn't actually achieved the pinnacle of Counter-Strike, and he hasn't gotten a major trophy, despite the fact that he was so close. And I think that's something that, for example, motivated James probably in a very similar way, that he was so close. I mean, he tasted the fact that he was on that grand final stage back in Berlin, and then he used all of that fuel to motivate him to get all the way back there for Rio. But I kind of want to actually focus on G2 just a little bit more in terms of Mauisnake, because I think this is a guy that, when I look to the future, is knocking on the door of becoming one of the best players. He already is one of, I'd say, the top 10 players in the world, but really actually achieving the potential, or like recognizing that potential that could make him challenge somebody like Simple. So where do you think his trajectory is right now?
Yeah, I think it's a bit scary for us as analysts to try to overrate a player. I think we sometimes do it, sometimes we try not to. But you want to be careful, especially with how much praise it feels like we want to give to Mauisnake, because I think some of us feel like he's going to be a number 1 player one day, and that's just such an unlikely bet to make. When I think about it, there's almost nobody else that I would personally bet on to make it to top 1 or potentially be top 1 that hasn't been top 1 already. But I actually do think that there's some likelihood that it's him. He just has all the markings. He has every single thing that you look for in a player he's got right now, and it translates to his tier 1 play. I mean, even looking at his stats versus top 5, it's like way higher than his stats versus top 10, top 20. And then he had this like unreal year in terms of consistency, and he's only gotten better throughout the year. And it's like, I kind of said this, I thought if he was on a better team, he would have absolutely made it to the major. I don't think anybody believes he would have choked or done badly at Rio. Unfortunately, there's no stats to prove that. That's just how we feel. But with Mauisnake, I believe he will be a top 1 player in the future. I think he's the only player I could feasibly say right now, outside of Simple and Zywoo, that I feel like will be number 1, that hasn't been number 1 already. And I think he's also somebody who I feel like could be number 1 more than once, which is just something I wouldn't extend to any other player that I talk about right now, not even who's number 3, number 4, number 5 in the world right now.
I think that, the Katowice performance he put together at the beginning of the year is what makes us believe that if he's in a big moment, it's not like he's going to just fall apart, because even in that grand finals versus FaZe, you would say that he was probably one of the best. I'd say like top 3, top 2 on his team. I think Hunter had a really good grand finals, but I think that it was Mauisnake that had maybe more moments for me, actually, when I just think back based off of memory. But yeah, I think that at this point, it doesn't seem like nerves get to him. And I think the incredibly motivating, or what's compelling about him is that he just seems so motivated in terms of how much he's grinding, because he always is a guy that's like finding new tricks. Like he always learns. He knew like about those smoke glitches very early on. He seems to know just his utility usage is very good, especially like early mid round. I think he always has like a nice trick, and that's something that I think a lot of players almost seem to take for granted. You get all these really hyper skilled players, and then they don't always actually really lean into all the tricks that they can do. Like I think, for example, one player that comes to mind instantly is Config. Like everybody loves praising Config and his abilities, but he doesn't really actually use too many tricks. He doesn't have too many little smoke gimmicks and things like that. And with a game like Counter-Strike that's as tactical as it is, you need to have a balance of skill and tricks and ideas. And if you're just relying on only one, you're going to become a one-dimensional player. Usually if it's the former, people think you're kind of like the word would be like brain dead. You're just like
I call it vanilla.
Yeah.
You know, they just go to a position, hold their favorite angle, fall back when they get flashed.
Yeah.
Basically playing like OC. Don't do that.
Yeah. And then the other side is kind of just like a gimmicky guy. Like I think Art is probably more on the gimmicky side of people in the space right now. Most IGLs have to use gimmicks, I would say, whereas you'd want like, and then it's usually the balance on the team of who's coming up with the gimmicks, the one ways. But Monacy does both, and that's what's super cool. Yeah.
And we talked about, actually, I think me and you at an event talked about Monacy playing like Inferno CT side, the way he would just peek his like one side or the other on the porch pillar and then hold and wait there, and they get flashed off. When they beat FaZe just now at the World Final, this was a great game because it showed Brokey doing the same thing that Monacy was doing at the beginning of the year, and then they ended up losing the match. And I was just thinking immediately back to when Monacy was that player and how he's just not that guy anymore at all. He never sits on dead angles and waits until the round's over or gets flashed back. He's actually it takes so much more initiative for himself. And Hoaxy said he probably has something to do with that. Playing with Alexi, I'm sure, had something to do with that. Playing with Nico throughout both iterations probably had a lot to do with that. And he's not only kept the gimmicks, which are really key, like you're talking about, to separate yourself in a game that's very figured out, but he's also improved, fundamentally speaking, tremendously throughout the year. So that's why he's seen so much consistency.
Yeah. Actually, briefly, I want to touch on his counterpart in that grand finals, though. OC. You already mentioned the fact that he kind of plays vanilla, and I have a hard time disagreeing because I do think that OC is in a position right now for this Liquid team where he's essentially supposed to be a guy that's not supposed to fuck up. He doesn't want to be the reason that they lose a game, but that also in turn means that he's generally speaking not the player that wins them games. And after these grand finals that I've witnessed against Vitality, against G2, you do want to see him go to another level, because it does feel like that's the final roadblock for them, is having an opper that's contributing at a top 10 level, like a top 10 at least oppers. And I don't think many people right now would put OC as a top 10 opper in the world, which is very concerning, because you have probably 3 riflers on the team who could easily be top 30 riflers in the world between Yakindar, Naf, and Elige. But then the economy funneling to OC's op it just doesn't even feel worth it a lot of the time.
I think he feels like the sober friend right now, where he's the designated driver. He's coming to the party with the 2 crazy guys at Kinder and Elige. They're taking all the risks and going out and getting the action. And he's like, I don't want to, if a round goes badly, I don't want to contribute to that by being aggressive and dying early. Whereas I don't really see, if you talk, we both talked to you, Kinder. I really don't see him as the kind of guy that would be like, OC, like, hang back, chill for us, be calm. We're going to go do something stupid and you're going to take. I don't see him telling OC to not be crazy. I don't see him telling OC to not take initiative. But that clearly seems like the reason that Liquid are just losing rounds, because they could even use one more player like Yakinder and Leash to be aggressive, not necessarily be super risky. But at the moment, it feels like he could do what he's doing with a rifle, save Liquid a ton of money, and then just play a little safer and fall into the background, throw a lot of nades like he's doing right now. He throws most of the nades with Nitro. But what you need from Liquid is for him to get out there a little bit more, because he has crazy aim. Like, he has crazy aim. He's smart. So if you know he does something risky, he's going to do it well. And then he's opping as well, which is the most powerful gun in the game. And you look at someone like Dagster, for example, like OC could just take a page out of his book and Liquid would actually just win. They would just win tournaments straight up.
Yeah, it's tough to want to upset the structure of Liquid too much, given that they are going as deep as they are. It does seem like Elige and Yakinda are doing pretty well because of it, but I think we just want to see more confidence from OC. I think that he's not really, he's not calling his own number necessarily, and if he's able to do that, that seems to be the final piece of the puzzle for Liquid. But okay, so actually want to break down our top 5 travel destinations of the year. You and I both have been to quite a few spots. It's one of the perks of this job. So I've got my list. I think we've been to all 5 of these places. Yeah, we definitely have. And I want to start with an honorable mention because you didn't go there this year, but I want to talk briefly about Kyiv, because we were both there last year together. You were there for We Play. And as a city, I just want to give people a little bit of a taste of what this was, because obviously it doesn't seem very likely that anybody's going to be visiting there in the near future. But I would say I want to get your first impressions of this spot.
Kyiv is fucking cool ass city. Like it's just such a cool place to be. I mean, we've had some great memories there. Just going out. The food is incredibly underrated, which is something nobody expects when talking about Kyiv. The people. Everything is just so like the fact that We Play in the cultural center of the city have the building that they use for the Santa Claus parade to run esports events all year round. It just speaks to how kind of like progressive and forward they are with technology and with future industries like esports. And there's just so much respect for our industry. And that's why we see like organizations like Navi, We Play, all the players that come out of Ukraine. It's because they very much are kind of training a generation of people who are going to be primed for a world that's like online, and they're video production people. They're people who create games there that do a great job. Like it's just a perfect place for people who love esports. So, but then you go there and then you see not only that it's massive, it has really great food, and love exploring it. So Kyiv is awesome.
It's also surprisingly easy to get around. That's something else about it, where it never felt like we went out in Kyiv.
Yeah, they go fast.
Yeah, exactly. They go fast. Yeah, I don't even think that most of the drivers there have a speedometer. Actually, they'd rather not know their limits. Yeah, I think that one thing that's really quite unique about it is that when I was talking to a lot of people there, though, it felt like a lot of the discussions I had were sort of, and this was maybe foreboding a bit, like so many people were so happy to be there because a lot of people were coming from other parts of Eastern Europe, and they felt that Ukraine and Kyiv especially was a place where they could freely be themselves, whether that was due to I'd say like just like their beliefs or their sexuality, just the way that they want to carry on with their lives. And I felt like anytime I had a deeper conversation with people there, that was such a point of emphasis for them. They were so relieved to be there as opposed to anywhere else, because I mean, it's not as like you could say like, you know, you go to America and like you can be whatever you want, and you can to a large extent actually, but for Eastern Europe that felt like kind of a gem.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that you have to go there to understand, but people there are trying to very much be the leaders of a future where their country is unique to and not compared to others, and not looked at as like where it is in Europe, you know, not looked at, not kind of shoehorned into like one style of place. And I think that it's young in that
Yes.
sense. It's young, it's progressive. And I mean, even when it came to their language, like I think you noticed that whenever time you tried to say something that you thought was like, a word or a phrase, they would correct you if it wasn't specifically Ukrainian. And I think that was a thing that you noticed, that they were just so obsessed with the idea of creating their own culture, trying to separate, be their own country as much as possible. And yeah, that's why you got to go there. So people don't understand from the outside. I think there's something about the word Ukraine that just sounds like it just doesn't have it hasn't penetrated the cultural zeitgeist of the rest of the world. Like isn't like this like word that's like, oh, when someone said Tuscany, my friend's getting married in Tuscany. And I honestly, I didn't even remember that was in Italy, but I just knew that it was a cool spot, you know, just because
Yes.
Tuscany's a word where like rich people get married. And I was like, I want to go to Tuscany too. And then I looked, it's like, oh, that's in Italy. That's awesome. And it's just like, sometimes it's as stupid as that, but it really it hasn't done the same job when it comes to what people think about when they think of Ukraine. But if you go there, you know.
Yeah, and I want to actually also talk about the fact that really like in terms of what you can do for fun, there's just so much that's available there. Like we went to a really cool electronic music show, which was in a space that really you didn't you don't really expect it to exist because it was like a giant club that was not dedicated towards like bros and chavs and bottle service, but it was actually for dancing, and it was in a pretty central part, really central part of the city, and it
Hmm.
was more about the music, and the people there felt very respectful. People were giving space, and that's just not something you get everywhere, especially in America. Like that kind of venue is doesn't exist actually, and so it does feel like people are, one, they're proud of who they are, and two, they're respectful of who each other is because they're all more or less enjoying the same thing, and which is to them kind of the land that they're on, the space that they're in Kyiv. So I really wanted to give Kyiv a shout out. But now I'm gonna start off the top 5 list, but we're gonna count from number 5, and this is one we both went to. You were there earlier in the year. I spent a lot of time here with ESL Pro League, and for me, my fifth is Katowice. Like,
Okay.
it's the lowest on the list. It's the lowest on the list. I started to find out that this city had some more to offer, but you were only there for IEM Katowice, if I'm not mistaken, earlier in the year, right?
In terms of this year, yeah, I've obviously spent a lot of time in Cato for pro leagues and for Cato previous years as well. So yes, I think it's really it's gotten cooler the more time that we spent there. But the thing is that the things we thought that we found that were gems that were cool originally are now still today the most and best things about
Yeah.
Cato. Like,
Yeah.
Tolly House, and yeah, randomly like some of the best Indian food in Europe, straight up, and so cheap, and just like I think it being cheap is a huge draw as well. Like you can just go, you feel like you can do anything in a day, and it just doesn't feel like you're ever running your pockets. Whereas some of these other places don't have that, even if they might be like quote unquote nicer or have more to do. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely spend more money in some of the other cities that I'm gonna be going through here, but it's just that even with how long I spent in Katowice, still like some of the days in these Nordic cities, it's just like, geez, it just you just run a tab so quickly.
yeah.
But for Kato, I do want to bring up, because when I was there for Pro League, I actually was able to get out of the city a couple times, and I think what surprisingly it does have to offer. So this is kind of like for people that maybe are thinking of traveling to IEM Katowice, if your whole trip is centered around that tournament, there's other things you can do. For one, you're not too far from Auschwitz, and that was a very sobering experience I had this year. It was probably one of the most depressing things I did this year because I don't know. Actually, have you gone?
No, we tried to go, and then they had like really early closing hours one day that
Yes.
we tried to go, so I didn't get to. But
Right.
I've heard the harrowing tales of visiting
Yeah.
Auschwitz.
Yeah, and really that's a great place to find, just like if you're a history buff, or honestly if you just kind of want to understand the human condition on a deeper level, you're going to feel it there, because I for certain hours you have to take a guided tour. So I went and drove with Bled there. ESL let us have a car actually, so I drove Bled and myself there. We took the tour, and it just felt like every 15 steps after hearing the guide tell us more, it's like the weight on our shoulders got heavier and heavier, because we would hear about the atrocities being committed there, the fact that you're walking the same steps that just hundreds of thousands of Jews did, and then they aren't here this day because of what happened in that camp. So I think that, like, I'm not trying to say like it's like it's kind
It's
of,
like an important thing for yeah.
yes, it's very important. I know that everybody in Poland has to take a field trip there. I think it's part of their like elementary school curriculum or something. So that's something else to do there. I don't know if everybody's into like trauma tourism, but that's kind of what you're kind of moving into right there. But there's actually a lot of other stuff in terms of natural beauty, not too far from Katowice. But as a city as a whole, like I'm just gonna be honest, like it's gotten better, I think, is what most people have said to me, but I also still consider it pretty low on the list. So number 4 is for the RMR. It was Bucharest. That's where I'm listing them. You can debate with my list later, okay? If you think Bucharest should be higher or lower than some of these other ones, but
Yeah.
I think it's pretty hard to say that it's better than the other 3 that I've got coming up. But Bucharest was like, for me, it was almost like you combined Rome and you combined like Los Angeles or something. Like it's like graffiti, it's kind of gritty, but you then see these giant marble structures, but the only thing about them is that they have graffiti all over them, and it feels like people just don't care about some of the history there. What was your impression though of Bucharest?
Yeah, I just love the energy of like anything goes except delivery when it's raining. And, like you can get like you can download every single competitor in a delivery app. Like there's like 20. They all operate because there's just so much traffic all the time, and people are constantly buying things, which is awesome. So the options were crazy, but like if there was 2 drops of rain outside, nobody was working. It was wild. The other thing was just like there was a good enough immigration that you could find a good barber, which is also great. So I felt confident like going downtown to get a haircut. I loved just the mashup of styles like you were talking about, architecturally downtown as well. And I like a city where a lot's going on. I mean, I live in a big city as well, so Bucharest being really crazy, it just really appealed to me, and I had no idea what to expect actually when before I came. So that was that was a cool experience. I really enjoyed it. If I can think of something I didn't like about Bucharest, I don't know if there's anything specific I really hated.
It felt a little bit. I think my experience of Bucharest was slightly colored by the fact that I hung out in the Old Town area, and I think if you go to basically any big city on the planet and you go to what people call historic Old Town, it's gonna suck. Actually, it's not a great place, because usually that's where like all the tourists congregate, and I think that's generally where people get into bar fights, and that's where people are just gonna like be rowdier because they just don't know what to do with themselves, and so their one option they turn to is drinking. I will say that one thing that was incredibly pleasant as a surprise was their metro system. I was shocked at how good their metro system was. Like it, for one, I think it's like a flat. Was it a flat fee, or it was? I think you might just like touch your card on it, so you don't really have to worry about it too much. But also, it was very wide. It was clearly made at a time when they thought Bucharest was going to be this like probably socialist sort of city where like everybody was going to be taking the metro, and so it's just simply way bigger than it ever needed to be. It's air conditioned. It's actually very spacious. Like in terms of metro systems I've taken anywhere on the planet, most room I've ever had. That's how I'll put it, because the traffic is just god awful there.
Actually, yeah, too much traffic, way too much traffic. So there is one thing, but at least when you have too much traffic, you have good public transport. It's fine. You have the option.
Yeah, that's the weird thing about Bucharest, that I would just recommend to anybody that thinks about going there for any reason, just don't drive. Like, I don't know why you would subject yourself to that, because the metro is actually amazing there, has many stops. But I also think that one thing that's characteristic of Bucharest is like everything is a little bigger than it needs to be. Like everything is like the Parliament building. I don't know if you got a chance to view that one, but it's like the one with just the giant columns. It's like essentially, or it is not essentially, it is the world's heaviest building, and because it's just made of marble and it's just gigantic. It's just the centerpiece of the entire city. They have their own essentially like Arc de Triomphe, but I forgot, they probably have a different name for it there. They have these just massive structures, but I'd say the food though was kind of not, it didn't really strike me as like that hot. I feel like all the dining experiences I had there weren't anything special in Bucharest. That's probably like the biggest knock I have against it. But
yeah. I mean, especially when they're like, you get to go to a restaurant because they have Wagyu steaks, but they're just sold out.
yeah. They have like one, but then they list that they have it just to kind of say, hey, we're a restaurant that carries this.
Yeah. That's true. We didn't dine too much in Bucharest. Also a symptom, I think, of just how much we didn't have any days off, I think, during the RMR, so that made it a little bit more challenging. Yeah.
Well, we were able to experience a little bit of nightlife. We were able to go to that one function that actually had like the Function 1 speakers. And for people that don't really frequent electronic music venues, Function 1 speakers run like maybe 15 to 20K a piece. The audio quality is exceptional on them. I actually don't think the venue tuned them correctly, if I'm being like really like picky about it, but that was like a big shocker. And what's interesting about Bucharest, if I compare it to like a lot of other electronic music scenes, is that it's very insular. I noticed when I was looking at events there, and even the people we saw, they're very, very popular Romanian Bucharest artists, but I've never even heard of them. I don't think anybody else really has heard of these people that are over there, because they do weird stuff. Like they brought out like a saxophone, I think, in the middle of an electronic DJ set. And it was like, where did that come from? But it does have its own unique idiosyncrasies, I would say. But it's also kind of, I don't know if it's good. You know, like sometimes doing things differently isn't actually it's like unique, but like at a cost.
Yeah, that is the culture in Bucharest. Like literally anything goes. So
Yeah.
that means that you can get whatever you want because there's everything's going on all the time. But at the same time, like sometimes like I think it would express itself in the architecture if things were more cohesive and there were like rules against anything. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yes, now that you bring that up, I totally remember the fact that the buildings are just one next to the other. Like I've never seen this in any other city where you get this like almost Eastern Orthodox style of architecture. It is like a house almost. And then you get next to like the most modern building you would see probably in like West Hollywood or something. Like it just made
Yeah.
no sense to me at all. Like the zoning laws don't exist there. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Also, like as a walking city, pretty. I'd actually say it's pretty good though. I'm
It's
kind
an
of
interesting one. Yeah.
yeah.
Things are close together. So
Yeah, I was pretty impressed with its walkability. Okay, do you have anything else, or else I'm gonna move to my number 3?
go for it.
I think my number 3 would probably be your number 1, just from what I know about you. But my number 3 is Copenhagen. My number
Oh
3.
wow. Okay.
Yeah, my number
That's
3
my number 3 actually.
of ones this year.
Yeah. Well, because it's just because I've been there before. But yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, so for me, for Copenhagen, I think it's indisputable the quality of food there. The like everywhere you eat is good. Like there's nobody is slacking when it comes to restaurants there. I think that the layout, the infrastructure is also incredible. Like the fact that it's the most bikeable city, one of the most bikeable cities on the planet. I think it's usually rivaled with, like, people say Amsterdam is up there, but I think Copenhagen is probably actually better than Amsterdam in terms of biking, because I went to Amsterdam this year too. Won't talk about that one, but like it's just that with Copenhagen, the reason I put it as third is that it's just a little too homogenous for me. It's that it's kind of a lot of the same everywhere. Like I know every cafe is going to be good and they're all going to have like a really good croissant or whatever it is, but I also feel like it doesn't like strike me as too different when I go place to place. Like I get what I'm going to see everywhere, and they all kind of have this sophisticated style of cooking, but like it seemed like when I tried Chinese food, for example, in that meatpacking district, I was like, this is not great. Like the immigrant side of things for Denmark is where I feel like it's a little bit lacking, but it's just that the people that are from there have honed their craft so much so in whatever it is that they choose to focus on. Like anything that's using local produce and then using like modern techniques is just going to be fantastic. But it's just that I'm not going to find like the best doner kebab there. That's how I'll put it.
Yes, I think, yeah, in terms of cultural offerings, it's not really high up on the list of like really cool international cities to go to. And yeah, the because it's so homogenous, it's weird because now so many cities we go to have just like so much to say when it comes to multiculturalism that Copenhagen now stands out for really not being there. And I think that for what they have, it's obviously really great quality. So I feel the same way. I think if they did step up in that department, this would be one of the hardest cities to beat. I mean, there's so many restaurants you go to, they're like, this beats out like Michelin star places in other countries, and it doesn't even have one. It's not really recognized at that level. They take everything they do very seriously. They have nice clothing brands. They have really good quality. They have the best city planning that I've ever seen.
For sure.
Just my favorite. It looks so beautiful. It's the most bikeable place. And I agree with you when it comes to Copenhagen versus Amsterdam. It's kind of like that thing where you're not allowed to say anything's better than Amsterdam. But if you go to Copenhagen, there's no construction on certain turns. All the streets are the same color and paved the same way. They're all really, really wide. Whereas in Amsterdam, everything's slightly different. And I think if, in terms of your experience biking in a city, you want things to be completely intuitive and flat. And I think that's where Copenhagen is the best at. The one drawback as well is that maybe for me going to Copenhagen, it's not that big. It's 1 million people. That, you know, the sheer size of the city, there's only so much to explore. You can only go, you know, be amazed by Christiania so many times and whatever. But at the same time, for what it has, it does really well. It's kind of like a nice sort of bespoke boutique in a mall that's just like got that one thing that it's really good at. Or I don't know. It is a great city.
Yeah. I love also like it's rather picturesque given the fact that it's just along is it like an ocean, or is it's touching the ocean, right? Like what
Yeah.
that water right there. Yeah. Okay. So it's kind of built into the ocean. It's almost like a peninsula or something. It's like on the tip of the ocean, basically. Either way, I guess other drawbacks is like the public transport there felt kind of grimy, and also it wasn't very intuitive too. But the infrastructure itself, once you're in the city, like because we were having to travel from another suburb into it sometimes, that felt a little bit cumbersome for me. But one city that I think beats it in terms of how picturesque it is, my number two, is Stockholm. I think Stockholm to me really stood out because the natural just topography of the city was very unique. It kind of reminded me a little bit almost of LA, actually, because it's oddly mountainous. And I've never seen this anywhere else personally, is that what you have in Stockholm, and one of the reasons that it's so like kind of almost hard to build on and almost tough to traverse at times, is because it's built on granite. And it's like you see these just granite formations as like mountains that are kind of jutting out of the ground sometimes. And even if you're going on the highway, you'll just see like a giant granite slab almost next to the highway, and it's kind of imposing. It almost kind of sometimes reads like in 2001: A Space Odyssey, where that monolith is. It's just like you just kind of see those in the cliffs, and it's almost like what is that? That almost seems ominous. But I really love Stockholm this year. It has a lot of the benefits and kind of, I'd say, a similar beauty as Copenhagen, but it is much more like it's different because I'd say there's like so much more immigrant culture there too.
Yeah, I think people are a slight bit more down to earth in Stockholm than they are in Copenhagen as well. It feels like they're like maybe a little bit more self-aware about where they stand in the world and what, they offer, what they're good at and what they're not. Whereas I think in Copenhagen, kind of everything is exceptional and we're the best, and it's totally veiled with how they act. They kind of just come through and just, they don't really brag about everything, but you kind of feel the pride when they talk about things they have. Whereas in Stockholm, I think it's a little bit more self-deprecating, which is just, I think, more palatable personally as a North American. I think it's just cool to see. I like it. Makes you feel more welcome, and a better kebab. And I think that's big. Like everyone in Europe, it's like their favorite food is kebab. When they go out and drink, they want to eat kebab. And so how much good kebab you have really matters in Europe, I think. So yeah, there's that. Copenhagen's great kebab though, can't lie, even though somehow they managed to do that as well. Yeah, and also just good dining. I mean, that one restaurant that we went to that was just in like sort of a glass atrium something. That was awesome. I mean, that stood to almost all of the other great restaurants that I went to throughout the year. I really loved it, and I was just like, man, like this is just the first place that we've tried that we looked at that was supposed to be cool. How many other great restaurants are there in Stockholm? That was the first thought I had.
Yeah, I mean, there was actually a few options just in that area, and we just kind of decided to go to that one. So yeah, I feel like, yeah, the people aspect of Stockholm is where I rate it super highly for places I've been this year, and actually just places I've been in Europe, period, for like my entire life now. Because talking to people there, like meeting strangers at a bar or whatever, you're just gonna meet people who are just enthused that you're there. They're like very talkative. They're very like, oh my god, like they seem so warm to foreigners. Like I'll say that, like I went to this one restaurant, and I just sat at the bar and I ate with this guy, and he was from America actually, and we got on, so we actually decided to like go to a bar after and get a drink, and then we just met this random group of people from Stockholm, and they just invited us into their group, and we all just kind of started getting along. And I felt like in Denmark, like I don't know, I just haven't had that kind of thing. Like people, again, like they kind of stay a little bit closer to themselves. Like they're gonna stay if they're in their group, they might say like hello, but it's almost like a pleasantry, and you almost feel like it's just perfunctory. Whereas in Stockholm, it's like these people were really trying to get to know me. Like they wanted to keep hanging out, and I had to say no, type of thing. And I think that warmth always makes me rate a city a little bit higher if the people are like that. And even one of the guys there, I actually talked to him directly about Copenhagen versus Stockholm, and he had that sort of self-deprecating nature. He's kind of like, you're gonna say you like Copenhagen more, right? And I was like, no, I like Stockholm. He's like, yeah, I like it too, but everybody likes Stockholm. Like he was ready. Yeah. He was ready to sell everything short, but he actually did have some pride in his city. But yeah, I think that I think just like whereas Copenhagen, it's so beautiful, but like the topography of Stockholm is where I really just give it so much credit, because like when we were driving from the hotel to the studio, like they go over all these bridges, you see everything's built on islands. It's so visually stimulating constantly, and I feel like it other than the winter, probably it's probably such a beautiful place to be at most times of the year. If there's sun out, I can't really see a place that I would want to walk around much more. And I know you did a lot of walking like on your first day there, right?
Yeah, I did that, walk the whole city and went to a few places, and was really awesome to. Yeah, it was awesome to a bunch of cafes and stuff like that. I had a great time. I think all these Nordic countries in summer, especially, they just kill. Like they have such clean air, clean water,
Yes. Yeah.
and everyone's just so much happier because it's like the 20% of the year that's actually warm, that they have no choice but to all be in the same mood, which is just happy at the same time. And you get to just benefit from that by just showing up at like right at the perfect moment. So no question, such an underrated place to go. Like, who would want to go to Northern Europe in the summer? But when you actually do, you wonder, like, why would you ever go somewhere hot in the summer? Because they're the ones who appreciate it more than anyone else.
Yeah, actually, exactly. You don't want to get like the taste of what it's like 80% of the year. If you get that little like golden time when it's warm, like that is one of the things about Europe that's just so special, is that people know how to appreciate their sunlight. Like I think I actually read in like a tour book, or like something that was trying to sell Stockholm or whatever, that people will drop what they're doing in the winter if there is a day of sunlight for some weird reason. Like they'll actually just call out just to like go sunbathe, essentially, because they know how important it is. And I know that for like Stockholm has, I think, the most tanning salons per capita of many major cities, because everybody's just trying to make sure they get some sort of vitamin D. I don't know if the benefits are as good if you're in a tanning bed, to be honest, but either way, they want to still feel the burn here and there. Number one, there's no,
you didn't mention a place here.
there's no debate. There is zero debate for me for my number one of the year. It's Rio. I want to get your impressions first, though, of the city.
Yeah, when you're talking about like the topography of Stockholm, obviously that
Yes.
stands out. I don't want to steal all of your points here about Rio, but be one of my favorite things in the world when traveling. I experienced this, I think, most severely in China, when it was on being on a highway and then seeing like a city being built like 50 miles away, and then that experience of vastness, I think, is one of my favorite parts about traveling, where it just makes me feel like completely insignificant, sort of like if you're to go on a hike and see a majestic view, or stand in front of a mountain or a waterfall, just feel tiny. There's something that's calming about that, and I love that about Rio as well. It's just somehow manages to both be flat and totally like a level of Sonic, you know what I mean, like at the same time, with the amount of hills, and not just hills, massive. I mean, it's hard to define whether or not they're mountains, because they're completely covered in trees and forests, and so they're sort of like, they look like lumps, but they're enormous. Like it's like Halong Bay in Vietnam or something, with the types of again, I don't know if they're mountains or hills, but it's just crazy that they're all over Rio basically.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't affect how you travel. It still feels like it's flat most of the time, outside of that, which makes the place unique.
People say, like, a lot of people when we were there said it looks like Jurassic Park, but Jurassic Park was actually filmed on Oahu and Kauai, so like I know what Jurassic Park looks like. I live around what Jurassic Park actually is. This was crazier than Jurassic Park. This is what it looks like, and I get almost why I feel like religion has such a stronghold over that place, because how else can you explain just these hills that jut from the earth? Like, it's like God just like grabbed the ground and just pulled it straight up and was like, yep, that's it, that's my job's done here, that's gonna be. And then people call that, like, what is it, Sugarloaf or something, I don't know. People, there's all these names of things, and like they built the Redeemer statue on the tallest hill, and when you're on top of that one and you get this panorama of the entire city and the neighboring cities, you do like that feeling of vastness. It's incredible, it's serene, because I think that so often we're just in our own heads, and I think that a lot of people fall victim to this, like on the mental health side. It's like you kind of start reading your own thoughts, and you start cycling with what you're thinking about so frequently that you start to know everything you could possibly think about a subject, and it's like you'll dive in so heavily. But once you experience vastness and you see that ahead of you, you then realize like you don't know shit, and that's there's a calming effect to not knowing things, and that there is more out there. And so I think places like that, like you said, they give you a peace of mind, and I think that they're almost healing in a way because they take you out of yourself. They take you out of what's going on with whatever your problems are. And where Rio really wins for me on top of that, it's the first place this year I experienced culture shock, where it felt like it kind of was like for like the way I was trying to envision, like what I envisioned was so different still even from what it was, and I knew it was going to be different than what I knew. It was very much like Bucharest, LA, like parts of Hawaii combined. Like it was so many different cities in one. And yet it also felt like 1980s New York, because there was like a lawlessness to it, where it's like we were walking through the city with Freya and Machine. Like it felt like if we went down this alley, like we could die. Like we could, like something really bad could happen. And that's actually in a way also like there's something to that makes you just feel the life of a city. And I know this is gonna like people.
It's like no choice but to be present all the time.
Yes, you can't just like in most major cities, at least in the Western world, you can kind of walk around and you can kind of be aimless. But in Rio, you kind of need to know what's going on, or else like and there's something that just distracts you from whatever your problems are, because you have to focus on what's ahead of you all the time.
I had a similar experience. I think if I could add one more thing, that's just I always bring up about Rio, but just like the ingredients for food
Oh
are just
yes.
so good
Yeah.
that I feel like you could get off being a very average cook and still make an amazing meal, because the food is just everything's so healthy. Like you've got, I think, the happiest chickens and cows and everything are dying out there in Rio. The happiest like arugula that gets put on top of my fish is
Yes.
out there.
Yeah.
Like
The
everything is just
beans.
busted. Yeah, it's just busted. Like they've got good soil in a way that I think the rest of the world is suffering at the moment, and I don't think anything's growing right outside of Rio. So when they talk about like come to Rio, I've got the best food, I think it's literally because like you could watch like one Bon Appetit video and make like a meal that would outclass a chef that's been cooking for 2 years in North America, because your ingredients are just killing. Like the bananas taste like ice cream.
Yeah, the restaurant we went to, well, we went to a couple. We went to that cafe which had excellent, exceptional coffee, and their food too, which didn't even seem like a mainstay or like a reason to go there. Like
It was
also,
like just like tilapia, but it was like the
yeah,
best fish
yeah,
ever. Like it was insane.
yeah, it was incredibly good. And then we went to this place, I think it was Chez Claude was the name of it, and it like the food they actually use some French techniques, and kind of it was like French rustic techniques with Brazilian ingredients. And God, like some of the dishes there, I still think about them. Like I still think like the one that was kind of like the egg, but they served.
Foamy one.
Yeah, the foamy one was very good. The one with then there was like the one that looked like a star fruit, but it was actually egg custard and some
Oh
other
man, that was
ingredients.
and you like didn't know it was gonna be hot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're doing some really fun stuff there in Rio. Like I know that people like maybe think that Rio is a bit of a journey, but like if you're on the eastern part of America, it's actually kind of like the same as going to Central Europe. It's not that different in terms of flight time. So I don't. I mean, I get it because you're not sure what it's going to be like, but I'd say that basically, if anybody ever has a chance and they're like a wary traveler, I do have to emphasize that you have to know what you're doing there. Then Rio would be very high on my list of places. It's got an atmosphere unlike anything else I've seen. But what do you think about the list? Like, would you disagree? Would you change any of the ordering there between the? I'll just repeat it: 1 Rio, 2 Stockholm, 3 Copenhagen, 4 Bucharest, 5th Katowice.
The only thing I would move, I would switch Copenhagen and Stockholm personally, but I know Copenhagen's so much better than I know Stockholm.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, like, the reason like Copenhagen's high up on my list is just because even though I keep going back to it, I keep looking forward to it, and even though it's small and a little bit homogenous and stuff like that, it just never fails to impress me with some of my favorite places that I go to there, and like some of the most important things about traveling to a city, by like how bikeable it is, how nice it looks. It's like I just gotta say Copenhagen's just one of my favorite cities of all time. So that's the only one I would personally switch, but of course it's a list based on preference and not objectivity.
Yeah, of course, of course.
I only have two cities that are different. So I mean, I
Oh,
could
okay.
do.
Yeah, let me know. All right.
Okay, so I could just say like my list is Abu Dhabi is my fifth.
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
because that was really fucking interesting to go to a place like that. I learned about like what it meant, what the United Arab Emirates was in the first place, which was very confusing. But
What is
just
it?
having
What is
it's
it?
basically there's just like these royal families. They're all in this big piece of land that looks like it's all Saudi Arabia, and then these kind of parts that jut out that have a little bit of water. Qatar, Abu Dhabi, Bahrain. They're all owned by different royal families, and so they're all competing for attention on the world stage, and that's why we kind of have this, biggest, fastest, best in in every single category and in one place or the other. Whether it's Dubai building the biggest buildings,
The
almost said
Burj
Mia
Khalifa?
The
Burj Khalifa. Demonetized. Demonetized.
Burj Khalifa, or we were at like in Abu Dhabi, they had like the world's fastest roller coaster like right beside our hotel, and they had Ferrari World, or Qatar they have the World Cup, or you know what it is. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but then they all have there's two sets of laws. Like if you're a tourist, you don't have any of the same rules as anybody who lives there at all.
Oh.
It's completely, yeah. I was in the mall in Abu Dhabi, and there was a chick. I think she was Russian, and she was wearing like a sweater, like a two-piece sweater vest type thing. It literally could see her nipples through it, and I was like,
Oh.
you're the bravest person in this country. Like this
Jeez.
is fucking unreal. But like there really is. There wasn't even anyone turning heads. Like it was just two separate rules if you're a tourist or not, and they want more tourism, I think. So they do a good job of making you feel kind of comfortable no matter who you are in the bubble wrap zone that is like what for us it was called Yas Island.
Ass Island?
and-
I want to go there.
Yeah. Yeah. Booty land. No, they had that. It was called the Yas Island, and they had Ferrari World, they had a Warner Brothers studio, they had what else? It had like a series of it kind of felt like Vegas with like no people. So it was just like the strip of amazing hotels and lots of entertainment everywhere. And then and so like it looked like we were in a city in America because all the roads and the signage and everything felt like it was straight from North America. Like I felt like I was on GeoGuessr and I would have guessed completely wrong and been embarrassed.
Yeah.
Everything was very clean. Like they even had bike lanes throughout. I didn't see a single bike the entire time that I was
Isn't
there.
it too hot to bike?
That's the thing. So the other thing is that the climate when we were there in the winter, it actually was just like California. Of course, we're still in a desert.
Nice.
We were in a desert, but it was incredible weather. I mean, it was not too humid. There was barely any clouds in the sky. It was great. We walked to work every single day. It was like a 20-minute walk. We walked back at night. It was basically the same temperature. So incredible from a weather perspective, climate perspective. Now, the thing is, if you go there in the summer, when we went to the desert, we talked to the tour guide, and he's like, it's in the desert in the summer, in the morning, it's 42 degrees. In the afternoon, it's up to 60. So that's right, the Celsius.
Yeah. I mean,
that's
Celsius.
So 42 degrees is like 110 or more.
It's,
I know.
it's already
And
above
then
100.
60 is, and then 60 you're just cooking eggs. Like,
you could throw one right on the road, and it's
and apparently you just can't breathe. So
yeah,
it's sort of like going to. I would say it's sort of like going to Copenhagen in the summer, going to Abu Dhabi in the winter. That's a really cool place to go in the winter, even though it's only a few months.
Yeah, I actually didn't even. Okay, like, I have no idea still what the Middle East is like. How was the food? I feel like it'd be extravagant.
That was a hard part because we didn't get to travel outside of our bubble wrap zone as much.
Okay.
Within it was good. I mean, first of all, one of the nice things is like if something's spicy, it was. Like we sat down in restaurants with Freya, Maniac, and Joey, and there was like 3 people that couldn't eat the samosa, even though it didn't even list as spicy at the Indian restaurant that we went to. They just couldn't finish it, which I loved.
Yeah,
and
I love gatekeeping food.
I know, and they also like Connor like asked for something spicy, and they're like, "Yeah, you like spicy?"
They just look at him like, "Not this guy.
Yeah,
Surely not."
This guy.
This guy doesn't know what he's getting himself into.
Another one's in over his head. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was nice to just have food be spicy and not be a weird thing, not be some kind of. I didn't feel like I was sitting on hot ones, begging and telling them, how Indian I am to convince them to put an extra chili in my masala. But food was overall pretty solid. We didn't get to go to like a really authentic place downtown, which I wanted to do. Just because of the event. I was on a bad skid. I definitely got jet lagged. I slept we are 8 hours difference from North America, and we had great flights, but I was coming back at 6 p.m. and then sleeping till 11 and then recording 3 YouTube videos and going to sleep at 2 a.m. and then
Yeah.
so I was fucked. I was on a bad schedule.
Right. You were gonna say there was like one more place you went?
Oh, the only other place that's in my top 5 that I didn't mention was Lisbon.
Oh
So
yeah, for the spring finals.
that's actually my number one. So I
Oh,
think,
okay.
yeah, it's just this. I'm in love with Lisbon. I think that the biggest problem though for me is that Lisbon, now that I've even explored a lot more in terms of the food just doesn't compare even to like Spain. It doesn't compare to Copenhagen. It doesn't compare to Rio. The food could be better. But they have certain things that I really like. Like I could have a bifana every single day. I could have like just yeah. Generally, their fish is really good. Just being a port city and everything. I do, and it's just the idea that like half of the city was destroyed, half of it's modern. Then they're side by side because of this earthquake, and then they're connected by this graffiti that's paid for by the government by all these
Oh yeah.
murals that
Yeah, the
go
murals.
across both the modern side and the old side. And then as long as you're not there in the dead of summer, the weather's pretty fucking nice all year round. People are super happy. I think it's like awesome to be able to like scooter down the perimeter of things all the way down to the coast, and I think it's just an amazing place. So I really love Lisbon. The people are awesome. It's one of the best crowds in terms of like they didn't even have Furia there, and they still were great this year. So love Portugal, love Lisbon.
That's a good one. I tell people I haven't actually been to Lisbon myself, but I say if things went right, San Francisco would be Lisbon. But
oh yeah, right, yeah,
and
yeah,
maybe San Francisco needs there to be an earthquake. Actually, another one.
Yeah, because
I'm
I'm trying to buy some property, and I need the prices to come down.
I can say that I'm from there. I'm from the Bay Area, so I can say that. But yeah, wouldn't mind if it had a huge upheaval, a huge change there. Okay, I guess the other one that I think I've been to that you haven't is probably Cologne, but I'd probably put that right above, like around Bucharest level for me. It's a nice city. It's a nice European city, but it's also kind of typical. Wouldn't really. There's nothing really I'm gonna sell you on it necessarily. Actually, I went to Dusseldorf also, and I think I actually like Dusseldorf a little more.
Oh really? Okay.
Yeah. So that was for Pro League. Yeah, I mean, I think the beer is better in Dusseldorf. There's this weird rivalry between Dusseldorf and Cologne. And Dusseldorf was where ESL Pro League was the first season this year, and then Cologne's obviously where Cologne is or whatever. But like there's this rivalry between both cities because they're kind of neighboring on the Rhine, and Dusseldorf is known for having, Kolsch is from, it's like Kolsch versus. God damn it. Oh, damn. It's like they have two beers, but basically the one that's from Dusseldorf is kind of ambery and it's kind of more like medium bodied. But then the one from Cologne is very watery. And I want to know. Oh, it's Alt. Alt is the beer from Dusseldorf, and it's way better than Kolsch. Kolsch is the Cologne one. Okay. Other than that, that's kind of the culture they got, just different beers. And then Cologne's trying to represent a beer that is just, it's actually pretty much Bud Light. Like it's pretty much just Bud Light,
no.
and that's the one bad thing about that city. That's probably the worst thing is that everybody drinks essentially Bud Light all the time, and they try to sell it like it's this cultural, it's this marker that.
How is it that everyone's domestic beer is terrible, but every imported beer is just a domestic beer somewhere else?
Yeah, I know, right? Like Sapporo is so good, but like for probably Japanese people are like, why do you like Sapporo? You know?
Yeah, no, they definitely. I was just watching like somebody who was travel vlogging there, and like we don't drink this here.
Sapporo,
like,
yeah. I don't even. that is what it is though. Okay, I think that's pretty much it for this year on travel for myself. That's all you got, right? At least for events.
Everything else is overlaps. I mean, it's Lisbon, Rio, Copenhagen, Stockholm, and Abu Dhabi.
Okay.
Yeah,
that makes sense. I think that wraps this up. I mean, appreciate you coming on. Appreciate you giving me your list. Like, I think that like most people probably tuned into this thinking like, where's the Counter-Strike? And as soon as we stopped talking about Counter-Strike, I wonder what some people thought. So I hope they leave a comment. That's what I'm going to say. I hope they actually speak their mind. Talk that talk. You know what? If you want to talk shit about our list, talk that shit. You know, like I want to read it. I want to feel the hate, especially from people from Cologne. Your beer is shit. Okay. Thank you so much, Launders, for coming on.
Thanks for having me. And I compare put your top 5 of all time. I bet we'll beat you out with just our top 5 this year.
All right? Yeah, definitely. All right, thanks so much. Catch you around. For the second half of this episode, I'm joined by the CSGO talent who, to this day, still has the most YouTube subscribers of any single CSGO talent. Paula worked with me for the entirety of the most recent ESL Pro League season, and he recounts his journey as a content creator. What I loved in this was hearing Paula's idols as he was boarding the YouTube train, including mainstream comedians and other creators on the website itself. The ups and downs of getting into this industry and how there's no consistent path is also another focal point. And I'm able to pick his brain about the future of content creation, and does that mean we're living or headed to a TikTok world? This is a really momentous occasion because Paula, we've actually never done anything like this before, despite the fact that we've obviously worked together so much in the last year. And so how you doing, Paula? How's it been?
I'm good, dude. I'm excited to be on your show. I think it's a cool idea. Yeah, I'm good overall, man. Like each year, I think Christmas period is always fun. So yeah, we're about to go into that right now. I'm not sure when this video will go out, but yeah, looking forward to that. It's been a very busy year. It's been good. And so yeah, overall, I'm happy and good, Alex. Thank you. How are you? Are you good?
Oh yeah, I'm doing great. Thank you for asking. Appreciate that. Nice touch.
Yeah, you've been in Hawaii for a while now, right? Like over a month or 3 weeks or?
I mean, basically since the Rio Major, I've been here. Yeah, I did a little bit of island hopping, but yeah, I'm back here, and yeah, you're in Sweden, so you enjoying that over there?
Yeah, dude. Like, this time of the year in Sweden is good for many reasons, but one of the primary reasons it's bad is because it gets dark so
Sure.
early.
Yeah.
And it's legitimately like, I don't know, man. Everyone feels it. It's like you get that the seasonal affective coming in a bit because it's what time now is like almost 9 a.m. It's just starting to get light.
Yeah.
And it will be like getting dark at like 2:30 or whatever.
Right.
But no, Sweden's great
Just
overall, and yeah,
few hours of
all good on that
sunlight.
end.
Very different from Rio and everything else.
I don't know exactly literally how much it is compared to like, for instance, London, but you feel it whatever the difference is.
Surely, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I do wanna take this somewhere that I wanna tell everybody about just how amazing of a person you are, because I feel like you have a very unique journey that I think some people that have been following the esports side of things maybe aren't as familiar, especially if they only started watching for the last couple of years, because you have this incredible background in content creation that I know most people in the scene are very well aware of. But I think, like I'm saying, a couple people that have been watching only for a couple years, they just tuned in for Kato this year. They probably just started watching CS in the last 365 days. They might not know that of all the people that are actually in the space, many don't know this, I don't think, that you have actually the most YouTube subscribers of every talent. Like every single talent out there, you have 395,000 subs right now. And I kind of want to talk about how that happened, because you have a very different style where so many people went for the analytical content. You kind of look at people like Launders or Haka or Mahone or even myself. Like a lot of us kind of just focus on the game, but you went this completely different route, and I think that's what makes you one of the more interesting characters in this space. And I want to know from your side of things, kind of like, what was that transition like? Because you obviously have such a deep history with YouTube, but now you're pretty much all in on these live events.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Thanks as well. So I mean, okay, what's the best way to describe it?
Let's go with where it started, because I know that you worked.
Yeah, because how I wanted to phrase it was, you see people like yourself, etc., and the other creators in the space, like their first like times creating it was around like CS specifically. I would say the esport, right?
Yes.
I started making videos just as in whatever videos I wanted to make in like 2012. And so like video games, comedy, skits, I've always made like a variety of content. But I used to play CS as a kid, like CS Source, not to any sort of competitive level, but like scrims online, etc. Pugs.
That's fine. Yeah.
On and off for many years. And then blah blah, university school, whatever. I've told the story before in other places, but to condense it now, yeah, I started making YouTube videos end of 2012, and it was just a mix of stuff. And then when I started playing Counter-Strike again, it was like end of 2013. It's when Counter-Strike Go started to become a palatable game, because when it was released at the end of 2012, it was a very different game.
Oh, it was garbage.
The game it is now.
It was garbage at the beginning. Let's be
very
honest.
different to the game it is
Yes.
now to the game it was in the end of 2013, 24, whatever. It's had quite a few iterations. And I played it when it was released, and I was like, oh my god, Counter-Strike's so different, no interest. But then when I'd seen a couple of the esports events and tried it out again for myself, and it felt more like Counter-Strike, I was like, damn, yeah, I've got to make videos about this. I used to play it as a kid, and it could be good content. And so then I started using CS as one of my games. It became my main game. And then from there, I was also, like, something I was already doing was going to events and, like, in the gaming and esports spaces, and doing, like, these things called event coverage or interviews with players and people, and games like Call of Duty, and just other random things too. Like, sometimes when you do YouTubery stuff, you get invited to a lot of press events as, like, a game release, whatever, stuff like that. And I started doing those types of things in CS as well, because of my passion about the game, and that I'd refound since I'd started playing it again. The game was a lot different. And then eventually I got asked to officially host, like, work it at an event. I did both simultaneously. End of 2017, I just got tired of making videos. I wanted to focus just on the presenting. And since then, that's been my main focus. I started making content again here and there, but it's quite hard to get back into it.
Yes.
Let alone to the extent of before, but in sort of any capacity. But yeah, that's a condensed version, which I hope answers your question. So I think going back to what I originally said, yeah, my content side of things is different to how a lot of people in CS esports do content these days. But it's just because it was,
I mean, let's talk about
a different goal and aim from the start.
Let's talk about some of your content a little bit, because I went back and looked at some of your
yeah?
videos.
Okay.
I watched a bunch of them actually to, like, see what made Paula, and I think that one that was pretty popular for you was those donation trolling videos. So really taking advantage of the fact that you could message pros or personalities in the space and then just make a short video that made people laugh. Because, like, I watched the Anomaly one back. You made him read out some really ridiculous message about like wiping your tears on your breasts or something like that. Yeah. And like, what inspired you to make stuff like that? And did you expect it to be such a hit? Because that one I think has over 1 million views.
Mate, that's like, bro, if you speak to a lot of creators... Oh, yeah, by the way, quick correction. This is sort of slightly ego thing also.
Okay.
Not, but just an analytical thing. So, because I stopped making videos at the end of 2017, I started making videos here and there again for, like, a period of 8 months or 10 months inconsistently over, like, end of 2019 to into end of 2020. But before I stopped, when I was still growing at the end of 2017, I think it was, like, 450k. I didn't quite make 500k, but then when you stop creating, of course, people unsubscribe. But just to say that I did actually got through 400k. Anyway, going back to what you were asking, mate, a lot of creators from my side of things will tell you a lot of the, of course, sometimes it's the things that you put a lot of thought into, you script, you come up with this great, like, idea, and then you work on it over time, and then you do it and it pops off. But on the other hand, a lot of the time, the biggest successes could be things that are spur of the moment decisions, and you just go with it. There's almost no planning, and then you just do it, edit it together, and it might just be like a 1 or 2 hour edit, which isn't very long. And then you put it up just thinking, oh, it's kind of funny, it's a bit of a gimmick, or there's a good joke in here. And then it ends up doing super well. And that's the case with a lot of my videos. And donation trolling was definitely that. I didn't think, like, oh yeah, donation trolling is going to be, like, really big at the time when it was, because a lot of people were super hyped about that at the time. But it ended up being that way, and it was kind of cool. It was just so basically, again, for clarity for you, because you might not know, and maybe your viewers don't either. But at the time, so when I was, like, prolifically creating as much as my peak of how much I did, It was like 5 to 7 videos a week, right?
Jeez.
Oh
my god.
A lot of them were big edits, so a lot of them would take 6 to 8 hours to edit, and then to make sure this was sustainable, even though it wasn't, but to make sure it was sustainable, sometimes those videos, I'd have to be like, man, 3 of the videos this week need to just be like 1 hour, 2 hour jobs. And so I would try to make ideas that were quick to produce, and donation trolling was one of them. It was like,
Yeah,
man, this could be funny because exactly you identified the right that one of the key things was that it would always be to my friends, so I know that they would notice my not friends or people that knew me or you have some relationship with. If I remember correctly, I don't think I ever did it to a completely random person, and so that way I knew that they would see my name and they're more likely to read the donation out or have a funny reaction go along with it. And that was the case. And yeah, you identified that. And that's one of the reasons why it worked and stuff. And it was sort of like absurdist humor. Like there was no like real story. Like it would be, the basic idea was getting someone I know that lots of people know and love to say something bizarre. Not rude or like inappropriate, but just something weird. Like
yes.
that doesn't
just
make
strange.
any sense.
Yeah.
And then I remember during the edit, I was like, how do I make this actually funny rather than just their reaction? And I was like, yeah, just do some weird acting stuff, like it cut.
Yes, exactly.
Like, interceded.
I want to ask,
and it was all just like quickly. I just came up with it and did it, and it worked.
The reactions you put into those were good. Like I even read some of the comments after watching some of these back, and people were just cracking up at your reactions actually just as much as they were cracking up at the streamers' reactions. Do you actually have any sort of formal training for acting, or did you just come up with that?
No, I don't have any formal training with acting. It's funny you mention it because it's always in the back of my head. At this point in my life, I've done a lot of the things that I've been like, as a kid, would have been a dream come true or were a dream, like working in gaming. Although, as a kid, you're always like, yeah, I want to be a game tester or like make video games or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do you ever as a kid, you're always like, yeah,
game tester is like everybody's dream for a minute. Like 1 minute, it's your dream, and then you realize, wait, there's so much more you could do than just play them. Yeah.
No, and then when like YouTube became popular in like 2006, 7, 8, all me and my friends like, we have to do this one day. And it took me 5 years to get around to doing it. And I did it, and I was like, yeah, I want to make it a career and make it a full-time job. And I did. Then I kind of got into presenting stuff too, and that I didn't plan at all, but it's a dream to make it a career. And acting's one of the few things where I'm like, man, it would be cool to actually try it, but it's hard to know how, this, that, and the other. But no, I have no training or whatever. But I find it, bro, we've hung out a lot together. You know, me and you can sometimes go full time into character when we're just hanging out.
Yes.
And
we sometimes just riff off of each other, like in like accents or like pretending to be with these bits, these characters that we just create on the fly. We do that all the time, and I think that's probably why, for example, the night shift works so well. Okay, I wanted to let's just get into it. Let's just get into the night shift a little bit, because I think that it's a really unique brand that we've created for ourselves. I think it's something that ESL themselves have identified as being something that's really entertaining for people. Like, I mean, for example, we did the grand finals of Pro League. The feedback for our segments was really good. And I want to put forward just that I think one of your greatest skills as a broadcast talent that I don't know if everybody's recognizing, but I want to crystallize this point because I think people need to know, is that you are so excellent at making a moment out of basically any situation, like something that can be memeable. Like, for example, I think a couple that have lasted, like Hooksy's World, like that one is just, that one kind of blew people away. I think that,
and almost all the Hooksy stuff almost completely backfired when they bombed out of like
it did. No, it went against us for a while.
That is great, but no, that's obviously just tangential. But yeah, no, that was a good one, Hooksy's World, right? That was funny. It's like, it just sounds good.
Ben the Legend. You put Ben, the coach of Encore, or like on the map. Like I don't think people really. I mean, they might have watched the interviews and they might have noticed him in the background, and then he had that one interview. But then you just put that moment, you put a stamp on it, and then everybody now knows Ben the Legend. And he got like a huge following on Twitter because you basically shouted him out. So I think that Yeah,
like maybe to an extent, I really appreciate it, and I'd like to think maybe I can do that. But the way I see it too is that like things like that, the idea or the spark, the content is already there. Like Ben, the dad of Savage, was great on camera. He did a great interview, and it's just sort of like pointing it out. Hooksy is his own brand. He has a huge following, and it's just at the time, I can't remember why I said Hooksy's world and we're just living in it. It just came into my head. That's I think a lot of the time how people like us that are creative or like comedy or work in broadcast or make content think. Sometimes something just pops in your head. But those two examples you mentioned, it's like, and many other things like that I've been involved in. It's like a lot of the time it's like the meat's already there and you're just sort of like pointing it out or putting it in a way that
you put some spice on it.
Well to an audience. Yeah,
you make it pop. Yeah. You make it pop and you make it memorable. I mean, the meat could be there, but I mean, you're the one that's actually delivering it. You're making it happen. I wanted to know also about so like thinking back to some of your YouTube videos, you did a handful of these other ones that were like playing with the pros. You played with like Olaf. Yeah. You played with Kenny S. I know just from being around you at events, especially the Rio Major, you have a great relation.
But now I'm terrible at Counter-Strike.
No, not even about the game, not even about the playing.
No, just sorry to interrupt. But again, to anybody watching, and maybe it's mad. Not that I was ever brilliant, but as in back then, because I was making a lot of videos of CS, I was playing the game most days a week. And like I had a 1v1 series with the pros. Not that I was arch competitive. I did beat AZ, but that is pure gamesmanship. Getting in your friend's head. It's an aim duel. It doesn't say much about skill beyond just mechanically at that point if you're okay. But yeah, back then I could do those things and could sort of like I don't mean this in any way in a competitive sense, but you could like hang to a level in those scenarios and make it entertaining too. But now I'm barely able to play, or I'm playing other things just to relax.
You still got the fundamentals down. I mean, I played with you a little bit, and just for any of the viewers or listeners, I mean, Paula's not like, you're not a pod bot. You're like definitely. I think if you like actually played, you'd probably be like level 8, level 9 face it. Like that's you could get back to 10 too. I think honestly, if like you knew what you were doing, you weren't just lost or clueless. So
no, I'm. I guess more than anything, I'm very competitive. So if I wanted to try, I could get to an okay, like amateur average level of player of CS. But as in, no, that's the best I've ever been. It's just when I was making YouTube videos and playing the game a lot, and it wasn't a good level. But as in, like it's like a compared to like now, whereas in like I play a game here and there. Back then I was playing a lot, and like some of those videos could work because. I didn't look terrible, you know. Like it was so hilarious when I beat AZ, man, in that 1v1. Like I was sweating so hard, and I like played aim duel specifically for a few days before to like warm up my aim and like. Sorry, anyway, I brought this off on a massive tangent. But anyway, go on, Karen, you're talking about playing with the pros.
Right. And I think that something that people don't know is that you have a great relation to a bunch of pros. Like, I don't know if that always comes out on broadcast. Because, I mean, you were an interviewer for a lot of your time, too. On top of that, you're one of the guys that when people are just hanging out at the bar after the games or at the after party or whatever, you're really easy to get along with. And I know, and so I kind of want to know if there's any players that really stand out in terms of personality.
You're drunk right now, by the way, right? You're drunk too.
No. Until there's a drink sponsor, nobody's drunk on this show. Actually,
you're drunk too, right? I'm drunk. Sorry, what was the end of your question?
No, so like of some of these, I'm sure basically you just have some stories with players, or in terms of like the personality. Is there any personalities from players that maybe people wouldn't have guessed because they don't get to know it? Because if you remember back in the day, like everybody used to just send out their one guy that was good at interviews, but then all the guys that are on the team are like nobody knows that much about them. So I feel like there was a few personalities that are kind of like gems in the rough there.
Definitely. It's quite an open end though. So it's tough in a way to single someone out or multiple people in terms of who a player could be that maybe a lot of people don't know much about what they're like on a personal level that I've had insight to. Because there's many, right? There's many. I've met so many over the year. Like at this point, would you say that? Well, yeah, of course, I guess the answer is yes. But like 2015, when I did my first official CS event, I'd already been going to CS events since 2014 and making content in it, I think from the end of 2013 or early 2014, let's say. But as in like generationally, there's already been some generations come and gone, right, in terms of players.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to think of
I think because
So is anyone in the past or current or
yeah, you were telling me kind of about like the golden era of like after parties where
No,
basically
let's
it
clarify.
used to be
That's a Maui snakeism. I don't.
Okay.
I'm not one of those people that get super nostalgic.
Okay.
To an extent, I could get nostalgic,
but
but I
you-
definitely don't say that was golden era. But as in it was different era, and things functioned
yes.
a lot different for sure.
because
Yeah.
because nowadays I think it's fair to say that the relation that a lot of talent and players have is that they know that we're on one side of the business and they're on another side, and so sometimes the intermingling is probably less so than when you were when you were starting up and you were basically would see all these pros that would just like anybody could talk to anybody. I think that's how you put it.
Yeah.
Whereas
no,
now-
I could,
yeah.
dude. I completely get
Oh no. Okay. Well,
the question.
Okay.
Are you okay? You good?
Yeah. It lagged for just. It's good.
You
It's
drunk?
good. No, it's
You drunk?
No one's drunk here.
No. So yeah, I know why you were asking the question, and we've spoken about it before personally, because it is different in that sense then compared to now in terms of functionally of sort of like the intermingling between talent, players, production. If we what's it not summarize, but as in if we break it down, let's just say into three sides of what we do. Before, yeah, it used to be much more like everyone was together. There'd be like the sort of social size, whereas the business was much more like mixed, and you'd see many more relationships between everybody. Whereas these days, like, yeah, I do notice like the talent that's come in at a later stage, especially, there isn't sort of that relationship with players. At least you guys don't get to. I guess the opportunities just aren't there. A lot of time we're in different hotels.
Especially with the online era that happened too.
Online
obviously.
era too.
Yeah.
That's a big factor. Another small thing, micro thing that then you sort of extrapolate and look at in a macro sense, if that makes sense. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Alex. But is like there used to always be a Twitch after party, right? And that might just seem like a small thing that, oh, those don't happen anymore. Not a big deal. But in terms of the social side, those were key spots where everyone would be together. And a lot of little changes like that mean overall, talent that have come in at a different time, don't have that same sort of chance to build relationships with the guys playing, perhaps, and everyone in general. The way intermingling and mixing works is just different. I also, from my perspective, if we bring it back to like more personally, I played CS as a kid, and here's a funny story. So I've told this story before, but I think I've told it before publicly. Henry hates this story, but Henry G. So I was backstage at a Gfinity event in London. I can't remember if it was when I was working full time at Gfinity for the 3 months I did, or if it was when I was there recording my own videos for myself. But when I was going through, it's I think it's still there, the Gfinity studio. It's like in a cinema in Fulham in London, where I'm from. And I was going past one of the screens, and this dude popped out. And this is when I was just getting back into Pro CS. And I was like, that's Henry G. I was like, what the hell is Henry G doing here? Because he wasn't commentating at the time. He wasn't playing. But I'd known his face and his name from like online, like following CS whenever he played, which I think was like 2006, 7. Don't quote me on that. But when he was playing, when he was on 4 Kings and stuff on Source, and he was on one of the top teams, I was like, excuse me, you Henry G? And he's like, what? Yeah. I'm surprised someone remembers me. And I was like, what are you doing? And he worked for the event company that helped put everything together. And it was like shortly after then, or at the time, you'd have to ask him or someone else. I think he hadn't even started casting yet, but then he started casting, and then we remained friends from then. And Jesus, why was I telling this story? So are
you drunk?
Funny story. No, I'm not. Just drinking water. It's 9 a.m. in Sweden. But No, so why did I tell? We were talking about the mixing of player intermingling.
Yes.
What was you had a follow up to that though?
Like
There's a reason why.
intermingling of players and how it's changed from being like talent players, production all hanging out together, and then it's sort of stratified now.
Yeah, okay, no, so I remember what I originally wanted to get back to. I can't remember why I was telling the Henry G story. It's a cool story anyway. But at times like that, oh yeah, so yeah, basically when I was a kid and I would see names like Henry G, this, that, and the other, I think it was awesome. Wow, these guys are pro players in esports at the time. It was so rare. And then when I got back into esports stuff through my YouTube, my first interest was, wow, these guys are players in professional esports, which was at the time, it was still quite fringe to an extent. And so then when I started officially working the space and making content, my first interest was like the stories and the people, right? The players. Yeah. And that didn't change. And so I was always like excited and happy to chat to whoever I was meeting, the players, people behind the scenes, production, other talent. And so on a personal level, yes, now I can remember why I told everything the way I did in the story, is on a personal level, that's always been of interest to me. Like the people involved. And so I always made an effort to chat to people, like build relationships if it was natural or whatever. And so, yeah, for me personally, it's even, I think, as you pointed out, where you were like, yeah, you always seem to, you said something along these lines. Yeah, you seem to have like a good relationship with people and stuff, with players that isn't as common these days, or you don't see as much. It's because of my, how, like, what my background is and what my interests are and or originally were, you know, and maybe the story I told highlights how that is from, you know, like when I was a kid, I'd see names like Henry G, and then you meet them, and then you start watching the new scene, and then you meet these people, and then production people too, other talent, and people that watch what we do, and that's always been one of my primary things that I've enjoyed throughout my whole life, is this whole world and the people in it, and connecting with other people in it that are like myself.
I do want to know then, kind of on that side of things, because you've mostly done two roles in the space. You've been a desk host, well, I guess host in general. I'll just put that as a broader term because you've done stage hosting and desk hosting, but you've also done interviewing. And I think that your interviewing has some incredibly memorable moments. Some of the like biggest memes essentially in the history of Counter-Strike, like "I'm feeling thank you," came from an interview that you were conducting. And I think you somehow have a way of drawing these interesting quotes out of people regularly.
But this is a perfect example of what I was mentioning before, right? It was like, mate, I didn't. Oh, dude, that was so funny.
How about just tell people that
I'm feeling that.
I know you didn't create it, but maybe tell people about the "I'm feeling thank you" moment, because I don't. It's been what, 5 years since that happened? Over 5 years? I mean, just
2017 PGL 2v2 tournament. But well, we were shooting this content piece where Zaz and Xantares were like racing each other on a go-kart in go-karts, a go-kart course in Bucharest, Romania, and we were doing the pre-match interview. And at the time, like Xantares was very unconfident speaking English, and we'd said beforehand, we had the chat with him and his manager on Space Soldiers, I'm just going to ask, like, how are you guys feeling? He just say, "I'm feeling good, thank you," which is not usually something we have to do, especially these days where everyone's so
everybody's media trained. Yes.
Yeah.
You don't have to prep them like that.
And then we go live with the take, and the video's up there if you guys want to search it. Just Google YouTube "I'm feeling thank you" or PGL go kart, and you should be able to find it. And I said what I say to Zaz, and then I ask him, and I'm like, "And how are you?" And Xantares, "How are you doing?" Or "How are you feeling?" Or something. He goes, "I am feeling." And there's like this pause, and he just goes, "Thank you." And I go, "All right, he's feeling good, blah blah." And then we cut, and I say to production, I'm like, "Guys, he just said like, 'I'm feeling, thank you.' Like, we should probably do that again." And I don't know if they heard or not, but they were like, no, it's fine, don't worry. And like, yeah, it just ended up becoming, it went live and it ended up becoming a thing. Yeah, pretty funny.
That's a good one. There's got to be some more, right? There has to be some other moments. I think, did you have one with Alu or Sunny? Was it?
Sonny repeated.
Okay, Sonny repeated.
I think that was it when he was on Mouse Sports, and I think it was at ECS Cancun. What an event, by the way. And he repeated that I'm feeling thank you.
Why? What was so great about? What was so great about Cancun? What was?
Like, I mean, it goes without saying, right? We were staying at the Hard Rock Hotel. It was all inclusive of the highest level on the beach. The event was happening in the hotel. You wake up in your room with a hot tub and a king-size bed overlooking the beach with all your friends from work that you've known for a few years at that point. An amazing tournament being put on by Face It. Great production. To this day, those guys behind the scenes, Face like Mike, etc. Top geezers and people. And yeah, it's just fun, dude. And then each night you go out, spend time. Tournament was good. Like it goes without saying, right? It's like it was a S tier event in a 5-star hotel. It was super cool.
How do you compare that one to some of what we're getting nowadays? How do you think the lifestyle has changed, or has it held up?
Sorry to yeah. So it's interesting, like how things have developed, because I still think there's a place for tournaments that have more of a focus, and they don't have to be the most competitive tournament, but things like, you know, Beyond the Summit, things, like the ECS Cancun, and other sort of productions where the don't get me wrong, it's still a serious tournament, but the focus and the story and the way things are produced is more entertainment, comedy focused around the sick Counter-Strike, right? I still think there's space for that. Obviously, I know it's so easy to say that. I'm not one of the business people putting these things together. But I think it offers, like, if there's space for it in the calendar and people can make it, right? I think there's definitely a place for it as a product, because it's enjoyable, it's fun. You get to see us players production a show in away from like everything being super serious and like the highest level of competitiveness in every way. Of course, it's still.
I think it's fair to say like the Katowice, Cologne majors are like supposed to be pinnacle premier Counter-Strike, but then sometimes you have these other events that are a little bit more jovial in nature. But that actually kind of does turn me to what sort of, I would say, is I think we kind of have talked a little bit about the glamour of this lifestyle. Like, I mean, so much so that actually I want to get on this point first, that I think that some people maybe aren't aware because they see us in this niche and they kind of think that, you know, we are actually kind of separated from what would normal celebrity status be. But I've been around you, and now multiple times people do recognize you as Mantrus, like in public, like the guy that was serving us pizza in Katowice knew who you were, which was just hilarious that we saw him so many times after that. But I want to say something that is a bit of a dark cloud that overhangs this lifestyle is that at the end of the day, I think we're freelancers, and I think that sometimes you don't always know where your next paycheck's coming from. And this is something that I think all of us have experienced. I think most of us experience it kind of in the beginning because you don't really know, like, are you getting your foot in the door? How far are you in the scene? But what I think has happened to a few people, and this did happen to you actually a little bit, and I hope you don't mind talking about it too much. It's just like, for example, like 2020, you didn't really see any events, and then you started getting back on the circuit in 21, 22, and that's kind of the dark side of this, is that there's these highs, but there's also these really low lows too.
Yeah, that because of the nature of freelancing, also because of the pandemic, and just overall the way our industry works, those things can happen. It can be also essentially impossible to predict. It can be no fault of your own, or for any sort of sinister reasons, it can just happen. And we get to have a great time with what we do, and it, like, going back to one of the first things that I mentioned in, like, making YouTube a career, which was a dream come true, it was a goal that I made happen, and then falling into presenting and that becoming this thing that I love and still love. Still love making content, by the way, just not doing it at the moment. But yeah, with all these types of things, creating on social media, being hired as talent in productions, the one of the tough sides of it that we're very privileged to do what we do, and I feel like we always have to have this preface, right? This disclaimer, like, yes, we are very grateful to do what we do, but there are sides of it that are difficult and hard. And one of them is the fact that at these events, we are freelance and we're never guaranteed work to an extent. There can be a level of it, and even if you've had your foot in the door for many years, sometimes it can go away for a bit, and you can't really have full control over it. Hopefully, over time, we can see more and more consistency for everybody. But yeah, that is something that can happen.
Yeah, I think I kind of want to bring it up because I think some people looking at this will be watching, kind of trying to see, like, how do they get their foot in the door? But like, I also would just,
Man, bro, is that one of the main questions that you get asked at events by people that you meet? I think every event I go to, or if I run into someone, because in Sweden, dude, it's mental. Like, Counter-Strike especially, also my channel, a lot of viewers came from the Nordic regions. It was like my main demographic was the UK, then the US, and then like the Nords. And the Nords are like smaller countries, right? So even though it's a smaller percent than what my other countries were, it means it's a large amount of people in
I actually have pretty much the same thing. I think my biggest viewership is Canada and the US, or North America, I guess, and then it's the UK, and then it's actually the Nordic region. Like Finland, for some reason, is maybe my fifth most watched country. It's so odd.
Shout Finland, shout the Finns tuning in. But yeah, it's mental here in Sweden for me. It's like, if I'm out on a night out, even in a smaller place like where I live, with my partner, my girlfriend, and that weird guy down there, not almost certainly, but you can be
actually certain. I need to say it because the camera does cut off on what I'm showing.
You can't see.
It's your dog. It's not like a kid or anything like that.
No,
like,
no, it's my dog.
Yeah, that was a little ambiguous, so I want to make sure people know that it's your dog.
Sorry.
No, you don't. It's fine. Some people are just gonna listen to this anyways. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I was pointing to my dog on camera for anyone not listening. Or you can't see. Yeah. In Sweden, like I can almost guarantee I'll be recognized any night I go out. Not always. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's like, it's very common here to be recognized from CS or like a YouTube channel, like mine. And one of the main things that I often get asked by people, it's not like the predominant question. A lot of the time, people are just happy to chat to you and say hello and ask about your life, whatever. But one of the main questions, and what I was asked you, is very often people be like, I kind of want to do what you guys do, whether it's like stage host, desk host, or being an analyst, or being a YouTuber, Twitch streamer, and they ask how to do it. And it's like, honestly, there's no set way.
No.
There's many different ways. As we even started off, one of the main things that we started off our discussion today with is like how my background's, even though we share similarities, it's different to like yours or Launders or Mahomes, etc. And then within our roles in actual esports events, it's like, then you're going down even further into different things that sort of required other different things, but they can all be approached in however way you want. And like, there's no set way of sort of like, sorry, I don't even know if I cut off your question, but you mentioned people asked like how they get into esports or production or content, and it's like, it's very hard to give a concise or clear response because there isn't a set way. You just kind of have to figure out what you want to do and find out a way to make that happen. I know that's so vague.
Yeah, of course. But there's just no one size that fits all for everybody.
No.
There's no like syllabus or rubric that's going to help you, guide you, or anything like that. It's basically, I think the main thing that I would say as a word of advice to anybody out there is probably just keep putting yourself out there. Like, that's what you have to,
you have to put yourself out there somehow.
Yeah.
Like, you can't like,
you're never going to get a girlfriend by staying home all day. Actually, you can in Valorant Twitter. On Valorant Twitter, you can get a girlfriend like that.
To expand on what you're like implying, it's like, for instance, if I was just if I had a job in X industry and I wanted to be Mauisnake, one of the top analysts on a desk, I can't just ring up Blast DSL or Elisa or like Valve, whoever. You know what I mean? I can't just be like, hey guys, I'm looking to become an analyst. Hey Riot, can you just teach me how? It's
No.
No, you have to put yourself out there. And it's usually you have to start creating content of your own, or like for instance, our friend Blair from the Night Shift, he got into it by streaming all Asian CS games and being the sole commentator producer, then showing that and or offering it sort of to people, and then being asked to do it officially. For me, like I'm a content creator, and I was doing a variety of things. CS was one of the main things, and I was also doing presenting skills in some of those types of videos. And then I got asked to be on broadcast. What about yourself? Like, how would you describe it? Like in a shorthand version of how you did it? Because it's different to me. It's different to Blair.
Yeah, well, I very consciously knew I wanted this role, and so I kind of knew that the roadmap wasn't so straightforward. So that's why I played up to like the ECL level. Like I played like, one tier below Pro League. I did that on purpose.
Exactly.
I was making YouTube videos at the same time. I was making sure that I also stayed pretty tight with my connections with Thorin, for example. Like I did some podcasts with him and things like that. And all of those combined made it so that I was obviously
that gives people a reason to
exactly
either ask you or you can ask them, and you have like you can show your body of work, whereas in like I'm prepared to give this a go, like, and then it's not like you're just taking a random chance on me.
It's like the same thing for somebody that wants to be an artist. You have to have a portfolio of your work. You need to like have something that people know they can trust you on, so that if you work for them or do a commission for them, then they know what they're getting themselves into. Same thing goes for if you're like on an engineer side. You probably need some years of experience at one place, a degree from somewhere. It's like you just need to have stuff that you've completed. You can't just be like, I'm an analyst. Like I'm gonna show up. I'm broadcast ready, guys. Just trust me.
Here's an interesting one, dude. So when I did the stage hosting at Elisa a few weeks ago, there happened to be a British guy in the crowd, and he was like, I want to do what you do. I want to be on the stage.
Yeah.
And it's great to have that like
that enthusiasm
and want to do it. And he was like, so what do I do? And I'm like, man, I don't know what to say. Like,
where to begin, right?
And I sort of explained what we were just talking about.
Yes.
In part to him, but it's like stage show's a funny one. Like, how do you become a stage? I don't know, dude. I just I got into it through the way I did, but I wouldn't say it was like optimal. I kind of got asked without even planning to do it. That could be one way. Become take yourself to events and interview and show that you're a presenter, and then be like send out that stuff to people. I guess I don't know.
How about we zoom out just a little bit here, because I really do want to know about something that helped propel you in the beginning. Again, like your YouTube stuff, because you talk about a little bit of your creative process, but I want to know kind of what inspired you to make videos like that. You were talking about being absurdist earlier. Like what kind of comedians or what kind of like TV shows did you watch before that, or even YouTubers that made you like inspired you to make the kind of stuff that you did? Because I feel like I mean there's definitely a bunch of people that sort of have that sort kind of style for YouTube. Obviously yours is in its own way and its own niche because it's Counter-Strike, but if you're going for absurdist, is it more like on the Eric Andre side, or was that actually after, or is that
there's a lot going on here. Let's start with the YouTube stuff. So YouTube came out in 2005, I think, or 2006.
Or sure.
But it didn't. Yeah. I think it came out in 2005. I can just Google that quickly whilst we're here. YouTube, Wikipedia. YouTube 2006. Wait, no, it was bought by Google in 2006. It came out in 2005. Yeah. And sorry, let me get my Google backlight back up again. That's what I do on my second screen. I have Google up because it's a white light.
Oh, great.
Hey. Anyway,
pro tip, by the way.
But look how much better it looks.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, it does look good. It does. Yeah, it actually makes a difference.
Yeah. So in 2006 is when me and my friends started catching on to it. Everyone in the world did, and it was just as like when they started putting in subscriptions and stuff, because before then it didn't. And this whole thing of online content creators, was becoming like, you know, an actual thing. And one of the first people that I really started to follow was this guy called Timothy De La Ghetto.
Oh, yes, I know him. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Classic,
So for
classic.
anybody watching, he's a American content creator, presenter. At the time, he was like, I think mid-20s or early 20s, and he was studying at university. He just made like raps and comedy skits, and he did mail-ins so fans would ask him questions, because he's sort of like a smooth, funny comedic guy. I thought he was amazing. I still do. I still watch some of his content here and there, follow him on social media. This is one of the great things, dude. This is so about like when you sort of have built yourself up on social media, some of the functionalities of these websites. If me or Maui follow someone, there's a good likelihood that they'll get a notification in real time on their phone or whatever. And I remember at one point, I'd already been following Timothy for years. But I replied to one of his tweets. And he followed me back, and I was like, "If
Timothy De La Ghetto follow back."
Yeah, 16-year-old Parler knew that one day.
Yeah.
Timothy, and then I've spoken to him a few times in DMs or whatever, and like, but I've watched so many over time, bro. Like, he was the first one. Then there were gaming creators that you sort of followed, like, or knew of, like, you know, Ali A, PewDiePie. Yogscast. I'm trying to think now. I'm looking on my YouTube and I'm going through my subscriptions.
So you would say,
some of my friends too.
Yeah.
A guy called Arex. In the Call of Duty era, there were people like Scump, who of course,
yes, yeah, that's
in his final year of pro playing now, etc. Nade Shot. From the gaming side of things, those guys.
So you would say that you were inspired mostly by other YouTubers that already existed, though? Like that was kind of more foundational for you.
This is what when I said, oh, there's a lot going on here, right? Because in terms of YouTube, those are the YouTube. But bro, I grew up watching so many movies and being really into. We've talked about film a lot.
Yes.
I don't think I'm some film theorist, but it's something I'm very passionate about. Is movies. And of course, video games too. But then beyond those, yeah, comedy, you know, and certain TV shows like Office, UK one primarily, and of course the US one too. It's great. Didn't embrace it much when I was younger. Having watched it as an adult, very different style of humor to the British one, but it's a brilliant show. It's hard to know exactly what makes you or your style of doing things, but all of those things in part have helped create how I like to do things, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And if I were to give some other names, like growing up, me and my friends would always, you know, Richard Pryor, Eddie Murphy. Then there are British comedians too, let me think. I can't think of some names off the top of my head, but yeah, like you draw inspiration from so many places, and those to name a few from like YouTube and comedy, and then like movies, you know, like. Bro, I can't list off movies, but yeah, there are actors and actresses that you gravitate towards, and whether it's in one genre or another, and it could be so many, you know.
Okay, so to wrap this up, because I know you just have a few minutes left, I want to talk about the future and looking towards what people are really gravitating towards now in terms of content creation, and I think that's short form videos, especially TikTok, the TikTok generation. We're living in it, whether we want to be or not, and you have stumbled across some amazing TikTok stuff. You're the algorithm for you is one of the funniest things I've ever seen. And
Which one?
Rural China TikTok.
Rural China TikTok.
Rural China TikTok.
Amazing,
Rural
dude.
China TikTok. So maybe I want you to tell people what Rural China TikTok is really quick, and then I want to get your thoughts on it. But first, what is this genre?
To everybody watching, me and Maui have worked together a lot this year since meeting each other, and started watching TikTok here and there. We'll show each other what we're watching, or Instagram Reels. And for some reason, at some point, the TikTok algorithm started suggesting to me rural China TikTok. And it's like little clips like of like heavily produced content from the rural areas of China. And it can be like, what's a good example? Like someone making some sort of food that looks very interesting, or some story like in a candy shop.
You
or,
get these like really pretty women like skinning a boar and then
this one too, so,
cooking
like,
the pig whole or
Yeah.
something like that, and then making delicious looking pork chops from literally killing the pig until they finish it.
That's a recurring one where it's
It's
like
a recurring theme.
an extremely attractive person, usually a woman, and she'll be like covered in like dirt in like a Chinese forest, and she'll be doing like hard labor or preparing like a hard to cook meal. You know what I mean?
Yes,
Like where
yeah.
like you said, preparing the animal and stuff, and it's got like this music on it, and it's like shot on like 4K video, and it's so insane. Rural China TikTok, it's literally like one of the weirdest niches that's ever been like recommended to me. And yes, it's something that I've shared with you, and
Yes.
I think we have a shared love for Rural China TikTok.
Rural China TikTok, it's just our
an
thing.
amazing place.
The final thing I just want to ask about TikTok, and then I'll set you free here. Do you
I love that we're ending on TikTok? Yeah.
But do you think TikTok and short form video is the future, or do you think you're going to be getting into that?
It's definitely a big part of the future. It's not going to delete long form content. Look, if you told me and many other people in 2014 or so that podcasts were going to make a huge comeback and be one of the biggest things, we probably wouldn't have like put a big bet on it, you know? In like 2012 or so, 2013, 14, 15. And look, these days, podcasts, whether audio or visual or both, are huge. And so I don't think short form video is just going to like overrun longer form content, and we're not going to see like long YouTube videos, this, that, and the other. But yeah, short form content is going to be a big deal. It already is. It's going to carry on that way. Attention spans, sort of how people have got into these things, is now in like, what's the word, ingrained in society. For better or for worse, whatever. I think some of it's good. I think some of it's bad. More styles of content then, though, I'm all for. I have dabbled with the idea. Look, eventually I want to get back to a sustainable way of making videos. That's always the plan. But the type of videos I'm used to, making slightly longer ones, YouTube, this, that, and the other, or a bit of streaming here and there. But I've been talking about, it could be funny if we do some short form stuff or start TikTok. It's like sort of low investment, potentially high return in terms of engagement, and it could be fun. So I might try it, but I'm not sure. I should try it. I have had the plan to try it, and I should, but I haven't pressed the trigger yet. Primary though, I do want to eventually get back to making videos. Find a good way to do it around my main work these days, which is my broadcasting, presenting in Counter-Strike mainly, and whatever else comes up. But it'd be great to get back to making videos. I would like to do it, and it will be some longer stuff, could be some shorter stuff too. Try everything. We've got to get the acting going as well, Maui. I've got to try that at some point. So find a way to do that.
Definitely. All right. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Paula.
No, thank you, bro. Thanks for getting me on, dude. It's a pleasure. To everybody watching, much love. Keep supporting Alex. Mauisnake, he's a top guy. And hopefully we can do this again, bro. Just let me know anytime. If you need like a top analyst like myself on any of your analytical content, I'm ready, bro.
Well, appreciate you so much, Paula. Hopefully.
No, it's all good, bro. Yeah, looking forward to seeing you soon, mate.
Yeah, will do. All right. Catch you around.
Peace, guys.